The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I stared at my computer screen, the numbers on the spreadsheet blurring together after 8 hours of continuous work. It was Friday, and I could feel the collective energy of my colleagues shifting toward the weekend. My name is Alex Chun, a marketing analyst at Meridian Consulting, where I'd been working for just over 2 years. The job paid well enough, and I enjoyed the challenge of analyzing market trends and consumer behavior for our clients. But like most people, I live for my time away from the office, hiking trails on weekends, meeting friends for drinks, and occasionally dabbling in amateur photography. Our boss, Nathan Sullivan, was the kind of manager who commanded respect without demanding it. At 38, he was younger than most executives at his level, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you during presentations. He had a reputation for being fair but exacting, expecting nothing short of excellence from his team. Our working relationship had always been cordial and professional. He appreciated my attention to detail, and I respected his business acumen. There was never anything more to it than that. Or so I thought. It was during our weekly team meeting that everything began to change. Nathan stood at the head of the conference table, his tailored suit jacket draped over the back of his chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. "I know it's Friday," he began, his voice carrying that authoritative tone we all recognized. "But we've got a situation with the Westfield account. Their CEO wants a complete revision of the proposal by Monday morning." A collective groan rippled through the room. "I need all hands on deck tonight. We're looking at several hours of overtime." I glanced around the table, watching my colleagues' expressions shift from anticipation of weekend plans to resigned acceptance. Emma, our graphic designer, was already texting, probably canceling dinner plans. Marcus, the senior copywriter, leaned back with a sigh, rubbing his temples. I felt a mix of emotions myself. The extra money would help with my upcoming vacation fund, but I'd been looking forward to meeting up with friends I hadn't seen in weeks. "I understand this is inconvenient," Nathan continued, his eyes scanning the room before briefly settling on me. Was it my imagination, or did his gaze linger a moment longer than necessary? "But this client represents a significant portion of our annual revenue. We can't afford to lose them." He paused, then added something that struck me as unusual. "I'll be staying late with you all, of course. We're in this together." After the meeting dispersed, everyone returned to their desks with a new sense of urgency. The office atmosphere transformed from Friday casualness to focused intensity. I immersed myself in the market analysis section of the proposal, determined to at least make the most of the situation. The hours ticked by, and gradually, people began completing their portions of the work. By 7 o'clock, our team of 12 had dwindled to just 5. By 9, only Nathan and I remained. I was putting the finishing touches on my section when I heard his footsteps approaching my desk. "How's it coming along?" he asked, leaning against the cubicle wall. His tie was loosened, and the top button of his shirt undone, a rare sight of informality. "Almost done," I replied, trying to ignore how the overhead lighting accentuated the angles of his face. "Just fine-tuning the competitive analysis." He nodded, checking his watch. "It's getting late. Everyone else has submitted their sections. You don't need to perfect every detail tonight. I just want to make sure it's right," I said, saving my document. "The Westfield account is important, like you said." Nathan smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, not the polished professional one he typically wore. "Your dedication is appreciated, Alex. More than you know." There was something in his tone I couldn't quite place. "Since it's just us, why don't we move to my office? It's more comfortable than these cubicles." I gathered my laptop and followed him to his corner office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. As I settled into one of the chairs across from his desk, Nathan walked to the door and, to my surprise, locked it. "Just so we're not disturbed by the cleaning crew," he explained, noticing my raised eyebrow. "They tend to barge in without knocking." He moved to a small cabinet and pulled out 2 glasses. "Drink? I think we've earned it after today." The formality that usually characterized our interactions was evaporating by the second. I hesitated before nodding. "Sure, why not?" He poured 2 fingers of whiskey into each glass and handed one to me, our fingers brushing momentarily. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me. Nathan sat not behind his desk as usual, but in the chair beside mine, turning it slightly to face me. "You know," he said after taking a sip, "I've always appreciated having you on the team, Alex. Your insights are consistently valuable. Thank you. I replied, the whiskey warming my throat. I enjoy the work, even when it means unexpected overtime. He laughed softly. About that, I should apologize. The Monday deadline is real, but perhaps not as urgent as I made it seem. When I looked at him questioningly, he continued, sometimes I feel like these late nights are the only time the real work gets done. No distractions, no office politics, just pure focus. So you deliberately kept us late on a Friday? I asked, unsure whether to be annoyed or intrigued. Nathan swirled his drink thoughtfully. Not exactly. The deadline is genuine, but we probably could have managed it with a few people working remotely over the weekend. He looked at me directly. Truth is, I've been wanting to talk with you. Away from the usual office environment. My heart rate picked up slightly. About my performance? Partly, he admitted, but also about where you see yourself going. You've been here 2 years now. Most analysts at your level are either looking for promotion or planning their exit strategy. The conversation shifted to my career aspirations, and I found myself speaking more openly than I ever had in our formal reviews. Nathan listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that revealed he'd been paying closer attention to my work than I'd realized. As we talked, the professional veneer between us continued to thin. What about you? I eventually asked, emboldened by the whiskey and the intimate atmosphere. Did you always want to be running a marketing department? Something flickered across his face. Vulnerability, perhaps. Actually, no. I started in creative. I wanted to write. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Turns out I was better at managing creatives than being one. Do you miss it? I asked. Every day, he admitted, and then added, there's a lot about my life that didn't go according to plan. The conversation meandered into personal territory. Nathan mentioned his divorce 2 years prior, something I'd heard rumors about, but never confirmed. I shared stories about my own relationship struggles, including my last breakup 6 months ago. Neither of us explicitly mentioned our sexual orientations, but there was an unspoken understanding developing between us. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the office into darkness save for the city glow through the windows. Perfect timing, Nathan muttered. He used his phone flashlight to locate a small emergency lamp in his desk drawer, casting the office in a soft, amber glow. Power outage or just this building? I asked, moving to the window to look out at the city grid. Probably just us. This building's electrical system is ancient, Nathan said, coming to stand beside me. The city stretched out below, a tapestry of lights against the night sky. I was acutely aware of his proximity, the subtle scent of his cologne mingling with the whiskey on his breath. Beautiful view, I commented, trying to maintain composure. It is, he agreed, but when I turned, I found him looking not at the cityscape, but at me. The moment hung between us, charged with possibility. Nathan, I began, unsure what I even wanted to say. I know, he interrupted softly. This is crossing a line. I'm your boss. There are a dozen reasons why this is a bad idea. At least a dozen, I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper. Yet here we are, he said, his eyes searching mine for permission, for reciprocation. The power chose that moment to return, lights blinking back to life and breaking the spell. We both stepped back, the professional distance reasserting itself automatically. But something had changed. A door had been opened that couldn't easily be closed. We returned to our work with renewed focus, though the undercurrent of tension remained. As we finalized the proposal, our hands would occasionally brush as we pointed to the same section of the document, each contact sending ripples of awareness through me. Nathan's comments became peppered with double meanings, his usual directness taking on a flirtatious edge. Your analysis here is penetrating, he remarked at one point, a slight emphasis on the word making my cheeks flush. I try to go deep with my research, I responded, surprising myself with the boldness. By midnight, we had completed the revisions. The proposal was stronger than the original, our combined late-night efforts having produced something genuinely impressive. As we saved the final document and sent it to the client portal, a sense of shared accomplishment washed over us. We make a good team, Nathan said, closing his laptop. We do, I agreed, gathering my things. The moment felt conclusive yet unfinished, like the end of a chapter rather than the end of a story. As we prepared to leave, Nathan paused, his hand on the light switch. Alex, he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Thank you for staying. Not just for the work. I'm glad I did, I replied honestly. In the elevator down to the parking garage, we stood closer than necessary, the small space amplifying the tension between us. When the doors opened on the deserted level, Nathan turned to me. Can I ask you something personal? I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. Have you ever been attracted to someone you shouldn't be? He asked. The directness of the question took me by surprise. Yes, I answered truthfully. Right now, actually. The confession hung in the air between us. Nathan stepped closer, his hand reaching up to rest lightly on my shoulder. I've been fighting this for months, he admitted, trying to keep things professional. But tonight, I don't know which of us moved first. Perhaps we both did. But suddenly his lips were on mine, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence as I responded. His hand moved to the back of my neck, drawing me closer as the kiss deepened. It was everything a first kiss should be. Exciting, uncertain, full of promise. When we finally broke apart, reality came rushing back. We were still in the parking garage of our workplace. He was still my boss. This was still complicated. I should go, I said, though every part of me wanted to stay. Nathan nodded, his eyes still fixed on mine. We should talk. About what this means. About how to handle it. Tomorrow, I suggested. Tomorrow, he agreed. Dinner? Away from the office. I smiled. I'd like that. The drive home was a blur, my mind replaying every moment, every word, every touch. I knew that Monday would bring complications. Office relationships were tricky enough without the power dynamics involved. There would be gossip if people found out, potential professional repercussions, boundaries to establish. But as I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I couldn't bring myself to regret what had happened. Something had awakened between us in that locked office, something that had perhaps been dormant for longer than either of us realized. Monday morning arrived with the usual flurry of activity. The Westfield client had responded enthusiastically to our proposal, and the office was buzzing with the success. Nathan conducted the morning meeting with his usual professionalism, giving credit to the team for their overtime efforts. If he looked at me a bit longer than the others, no one seemed to notice. It was mid-afternoon when he called me into his office, ostensibly to discuss the next phase of the Westfield project. As soon as the door closed, the professional facade softened. I haven't been able to think straight all day, he admitted, maintaining a respectable distance despite the privacy of his office. Me neither, I confessed. About last night. I don't regret it, he interrupted. But I understand if you do. The situation is complicated. I don't regret it either, I assured him. But you're right, it's complicated. You're my boss, Nathan. He nodded, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of his inner conflict. I've been thinking about that. There are options. I could recuse myself from your performance reviews, have them handled by another partner. Or you could transfer to another team. Is that what you want? I asked, uncertain which answer I was hoping for. What I want, he said carefully, is to see where this could go without jeopardizing your career or my professional integrity. You're too talented to have your advancement clouded by rumors of favoritism. His consideration touched me. I appreciate that. Maybe we should take it slow, figure it out as we go. Slow, he agreed with a small smile. Though after months of watching you from across the office, slow feels like torture. The knowledge that he had been noticing me, wanting me, for months sent a thrill through me. Months, huh? Since the Davidson presentation, he admitted. When you stood your ground against the client's marketing director, your confidence was compelling. The conversation shifted to practical matters, how we would handle our budding relationship in the workplace, the importance of discretion, the professional boundaries we needed to maintain. We agreed to keep things strictly professional during office hours and to be mindful of company policies regarding disclosure of relationships. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of public professionalism and private intimacy. During the day, Nathan was my boss, demanding, fair, occasionally stern. But evenings and weekends revealed a different man, passionate, vulnerable, surprisingly romantic. We discovered shared interests in obscure films, hiking trails, and hole-in-the-wall restaurants that became our private haunts. There were challenges, of course. A colleague once questioned why I was included in a high-profile client meeting when other analysts weren't. Nathan handled it smoothly, citing my specific expertise, but the moment reminded us of the scrutiny we might face. We had a serious conversation that night about whether to disclose our relationship to HR, ultimately deciding to wait until we were more certain of its longevity. 3 months after that fateful overtime session, Nathan was offered a promotion that would move him to the executive floor, overseeing multiple departments, including marketing. The night he received the news, we celebrated at my apartment, away from curious eyes. "This changes things," he said, as we sat on my balcony, city lights twinkling below us. "In a good way, I think. I wouldn't be directly supervising you anymore. So we could be more open?" I asked, hopeful yet cautious. "We'd still need to be discreet," he cautioned. "But yes, the most problematic aspect of our relationship would be resolved." That night, as we lay together, Nathan confessed something unexpected. "You know, that overtime session wasn't entirely unplanned." I propped myself up on one elbow, looking down at him. "What do you mean?" "I've been trying to find a way to get to know you better, outside the usual office context," he admitted. "The Westfield deadline was real, but I may have engineered things so we'd end up being the last ones there." "You locked us in the office on purpose?" I asked, torn between amusement and disbelief. "Not exactly," he laughed. "But I did hope we might get some time alone. I never expected things to unfold quite like they did." "Sneaky," I teased, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. "Strategic," he corrected with a grin. "It worked, didn't it?" A year after that overtime night, much had changed. Nathan had settled into his executive role, and I had been promoted to senior analyst, working under a different manager. We had eventually disclosed our relationship to HR, weathering the brief storm of office gossip with dignity. Some colleagues were surprised, others claimed they'd suspected all along. Most simply wished us well. We found that the professional distance created by our new positions actually strengthened our relationship. We could share industry insights without conflict of interest, support each other's career moves without suspicion of favoritism, and occasionally even collaborate on projects as equals rather than as boss and subordinate. Looking back, that night of mandatory overtime had transformed not just our personal lives, but our professional ones as well. The barriers that fell when Nathan locked that office door weren't just about formality, they were about authenticity. In seeing each other as complete people, not just occupational roles, we both became better at our jobs, more confident in our perspectives, more willing to take creative risks. The lesson I took from our unconventional beginning was that the boundaries we establish in professional settings, while necessary, can sometimes prevent the human connections that make work meaningful. Finding the balance, maintaining appropriate professional conduct while allowing for genuine relationships, is complicated, especially when romance enters the equation. But navigating those complications can lead to growth, both personally and professionally. As for Nathan and I, we continue to navigate the complexities of love and ambition, supporting each other's goals while building something meaningful together. That night of overtime, with its locked doors and dropped formalities, wasn't just the beginning of a romance. It was a reminder that behind every professional title is a person with desires, vulnerabilities, and the capacity for connection. Sometimes, the most significant career developments happen after hours, when the masks come off and people allow themselves to be seen. In our case, what started as an inconvenient demand for overtime became the first chapter of a story neither of us expected to write. And while I wouldn't recommend workplace romance as a career strategy, I've learned that authenticity, being truly yourself even in professional settings, creates possibilities that perfectionism and rigid boundaries never could. The office lights still hum overhead, the deadlines still loom, and the professional challenges remain. But now, when I look across the conference table and catch Nathan's eye, I'm reminded that work is just one part of a full life. And sometimes, the boundaries we think are protecting us are actually holding us back from the connections that make both work and life worthwhile. Total _char_count, 18,764.